comes to an end, we're about to close out National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's probably more than a few of us here today that have gotten a notice by email or by letter that our information has been compromised. And I'm sure that if we think hard, we can all remember one or two high-profile data breaches that have made the news. And we can probably even recall a couple of local cases where businesses or organizations were the target of ransomware attacks. I'll go even further out on a limb and say that there have probably been more than a few cyber incidents around us that we're probably not even aware of, or we never became aware of. Cybersecurity is not an issue limited to big businesses. And unfortunately, the bad players out there are more and more often targeting small businesses. That doesn't mean that we have to invest huge amounts in cybersecurity. It means being aware of the current cyber environment and the threats that are out there. It means making sure that your employees are involved in protecting your business and understanding what resources are available to support your small business. I would like to introduce you today to Ian Grant. Ian is a results-driven strategic IT leader who brings years of progressive experience across IT and information management, short and long-term strategic development, business intelligence, information and physical security, project, program, and financial management with extensive IT operational management and operations optimization. Ian has been quoted in a number of IT trade publications, including IT World Canada, Cisco Press, and Virtualization World 365 in support of a wide range of achievements. He is a passionate team leader who creates progressive environments through empowering collaborative leadership style. We've had the pleasure of having him as a past member of our Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. He currently sits as a board member of Algoma University, and he is the president and CEO of Algoma Technology Services, ATS. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you very much, Don. Appreciate the warm introduction. It brings back some memory. Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for joining. I'm sure there's multitude of things you can do as business owners and employees that can occupy your time, but you've chose to take the time out to talk about cybersecurity and a budget and how small business can protect themselves without breaking the bank. Cybersecurity can get complicated, so my attempt here is to simplify it as much as I can. As I go through this, please, I would love it to be an interactive conversation. If you do have the question, please put them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. So let's move right into it. Why cybersecurity is critical for small business? About 43% of cyber attacks happens with small businesses. And so that's from a relevant source. And small businesses never really think about themselves as a target because small business, what does cyber criminals want with us and the whole bit? But cyber crime is a big business. It's roughly around $3 billion a year business. So are they making money at it? They certainly are. Are they attacking small businesses? Yes, they are. And part of the reason why they're attacking small business is because small businesses typically don't have the protection in place. And so it's important for us to understand that you can have cybersecurity protection on a budget. As it states, a single breach can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Small business often assume they are too small to be target, but attackers think differently. And they think differently in that small businesses don't have that protection in place. And so how can we protect ourselves? Well, before we go there, let's just talk about the top 5 or the top cyber threat to small businesses. Phishing and social engineering. We've all gotten, as Don alluded to, that email that says, hey, here is an attractive offering. Click on this link to get it. You click on the link, all of a sudden you start, they may go a step further and then start to ask for credentials or other means of identifying you. So the top threats there are phishing, and I'll go through and talk a little bit about each one. Ransomware, and then on-path software, outdated system, weak password, or unmanaged devices. So phishing, everyone knows that this is someone trying to attack you from giving up personal information like password, banking detail, credit card information by pretending to be someone you trust. Usually comes a fake email, text, or website that looks real. And so that's what phishing is. You will get an email that says, again, you know, it's from someone. If you look closely at that email and scrutinize it, there's ways of detecting it, but it is getting very sophisticated with the advent of AI. AI is making it very, very easy for the criminals to be able to mask or cause their emails to look very, very professional. Whereby ransomware is a type of malicious software that locks your files or computers so you can't access them. And then the attacker asks for some sort of money and demand for you to open your data, release your data, and so on. You know, there's honor among thieves in that, you know, all of the ransomware that I've worked on have all, you know, if they pay that ransom or release the data. So that, you know, it doesn't work if you pay and they don't release that data. But that's not a position that you certainly want to get into. Preventing in this case is better, far better than getting into a situation where you are now negotiating with a ransom. Unpatched software and outdated system. Love or hate Microsoft. We all have to work with Microsoft, whether it's our operating system, whether on our PC, on our servers, and so on. Microsoft sends us patching information every month. So there's critical patching information every month, and those patching information are result from Microsoft finding holes within their software. So holes are discovered, they release some software that patch the hole, and so on and so on and so forth. So it is critical that your PC is updated. It is critical that your servers are updated on an ongoing basis. Weak password on a managed device can be an issue too as well. Weak password is very, very obvious what that is. Your name, that's a weak password. So there's ways that things that we can do to generate stronger password. Unmanaged devices in a small network, you've got a router, you've got a switch. Those things need to be maintained and patched as well as you go. So those are certainly the top threat to small businesses. So simple, affordable steps you can take now. Enable multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is simple. It is more than one way of authenticating yourself to get into your PC, to get into your banking information. If you do banking today, they require that. Most banks require that. So if you're logging into your email or logging into your PC, not only do you enter a password, but you also get a code on your phone that you need to you would then need to enter that code as well. And so you have two ways of authenticating yourself. Use a password manager. That's a really simple way of generating strong password, keeping track of those passwords, ensuring that you only have to remember one master password to get access to that. You know, writing down, too often I've gone into a client's organization and the password is written down and the sticker there. So, you know, from a cybersecurity best practice perspective, that's a no-no. Use the piece of software. Most of them are certainly free. If you do have an iPhone, if you do have some sort of smart device, they do come with password manager on them that are certainly much more trustworthy than writing a sticker on your PC from a password. Regular backup your data. In the event that there is an incident, we rely on a backup as the last point to recover. So backing up that data becomes very, very important, right? So you have on-site backup, which is you can have a device that back up your servers or back up your PC, and also you can back that up in the cloud, where there's a small nominal fee to be able to back that up in the cloud. keeping your software and your device up to date. Again, not only Microsoft that send patches out. If you have softwares that you work with, those need to be patched as well. There's regular software that are issued from the manufacturer that you need to be able to update that software and keep it relevant and up to date. And one of the biggest one that I find is the ability to educate employees on safe online habits. Being able to have that conversation internally, to use educational tools to understand what are phishing, what are spare. So being able to identify a compromised email or a compromised attachment at a glance is important. And there's ways to do that, and I'll get into that a little later in the presentation. So, you've got all this talks on phishing and ransomware and the whole bit, but where do you start and where do you focus on? I've often thought that, identify the most critical asset. Most critical assets in a small business: financial information, employee data, customer data. Those are very, very important. So if you're starting from there to say, okay, how do I start to protect those things? And I'll talk about a little bit about what you can do to be able to protect those things. Those are your critical asset. Or go through an inventory list to understand what in your organization are critical. If I lose customer data, what does that do to your organization? Employee data is absolutely important to as well. And typically that's the last thing to think about it. But from a privacy perspective, we have to think about our employees and their data. If their data is compromised, we have a duty and a responsibility that we have to report those things to the Privacy Commission. It's by law, and monitor if employee data is being used elsewhere, whether it is to seek credit, whether it is to some financial impact to them. So it is a big deal to understand your asset and to be able to start there. Focus on high impact, low cost controls. What I mean by that is there are things you can do today, put in place, such as what I mentioned earlier: MFA, multi-factor authentication, regular software updates, strong password policy and password manager, employee security training awareness, backup and recovery, email filter and spam. Those are low-hanging things that you can do without breaking the bank. And the last one there that I just mentioned: implement an employee awareness program. Often the most cost-effective and certainly most effective. The world and cybersecurity has changed. No longer is it I can have a firewall in place, I can have antivirus in place, and I'm fairly protected. The world has changed. It's gone beyond that in terms of breach happens from internal to external, meaning an employee clicked on a link, and that's where the breach happened from internal inside your network. So although those things are still valid, you still need a firewall, you certainly still need antivirus. It is now focused on internal to external. So we have to do those things to protect our network from an internal standpoint. So when do you consider external help? You certainly want to consider external help when you're talking about backup and recovery, when you're talking about threat detection. So let me pause on threat detection for a minute. Going back to what I mentioned about it's no longer valid to have a antivirus, no longer valid to have a firewall. You need more than that. Something called threat detection, EDR, endpoint detection and recovery. And what an endpoint detection does is it pushes the protection to the end device. So I push it to a laptop, a desktop, a server, and it gives an organization like ATS the ability to manage that device and the ability to understand what's going on that device from a behavior standpoint. So back in the day, you get a virus, you have a virus signature, the virus, the antivirus can certainly catch that. Today, it's more about behavior. What I mean by that is understanding if an executable file is run on your machine, what is that executable file doing? Is it going to the internet? Is it downloading large amount of files? Is it so? Once those sort of transactions start to happen, then the threat detection can respond to that. This is not normal behavior for you to download large amount of files to the internet, and so it gives us the ability to stop that as it starts. So it's critical that if there is a breach, that time is of essence. To be able to have something in place to detect it ASAP is certainly important. So what does that a managed service provider like ATS does? So we monitor those things. We have implemented in our for our client base a minimum base security package. In other words, we don't have clients that don't have cybersecurity protection, and we stand by that, and we take it very, very serious. We have seen a lot of stories. We have got involved in a lot of breaches, and the time to implement this is before the breach happens. Recently, I got a phone call. Can you help? We got a breach, an email breach. They compromised bank credential, went into the account, drained it. At that point, it is way too late to do that. It is better to put these things in place before it happens, so you can have the tools in place to be able to stop those things from happening. It's also important to make security part of your DNA. I think our practice internally is everybody's responsible for cybersecurity because we know the threats coming from inside today. We know that the ability to click on a link. We know that the cyber bad guys are getting better at disguising how they present their phishing or their spear tactics. So having a ongoing conversation internally to understand that security does matter. It's important to the organization, and it's everybody's responsibility to protect. If in doubt on an email, don't click on it. Send it to your security organization. Send it to us. We'll be happy to take a look at that and advise you of whether or not you should be clicking on that link. 5 steps you can take today. Going back to what I talked about earlier, MFA, having that on your accounts is important. It's harder for a cyber criminal to access your account if you have an MFA in place. So even if your credentials are compromised, they still need that code, whether it's on your phone, whether it's a fingerprint, whether it's a retinal scan. It's important that 2FA, or another way of saying that is MFA, is in place. Use strong password and use a password manager. You say strong password, use phrases, not just words, but it is a wonderful day outside today, January 2nd, 2005. That's a strong password, and it's a phrase password as opposed to a single word. Nowadays, we all have multiple passwords that we have to recall and remember. And so use a password manager. You can download them on your phone. You have one password to remember, is that the master, and that allows you then to protect all of the other passwords within that. It also generates strong password to you as well. Back up your data. If your data get compromised, at least you have a backup that you can go back to and restore. Oftentimes, it's difficult for an organization to do this themselves, and so if this is something that you're interested in, reach out to an IT provider. Reach out to us. We'll certainly help you to do that. Update software regularly. That's important. Software not being updated is a hole within that software. And oftentimes cyber criminals use that as a way as entry into that software to compromise. So that's got to be kept regularly updated. Microsoft issues standard updates on a monthly basis. Critical updates are issued to as well. We apply critical updates as soon as they come out. And then the regular updates are done on a monthly basis, and train your staff on what phishing is, what spear phishing is, and so on. There's certainly services that you can buy that will provide education to your staff, right? So you run a monthly education program and phishing, for example, educating your staff on what that is, and then you run a simulation to actually understand if this information is sticking or not, and if you're achieving 50%, at least you know who those people are that's clicking on a link, and then you can have some one-on-one conversation to further explain, and then you run that throughout the year, and the different tactics and techniques of cybersecurity criminals are using. Educate yourself on it, run simulation within your organization, and monitor and see where staff are going wrong or not. It certainly gives you some confidence that if you're running that, then staff you're scoring at a high level. We have seen all the way from 10% to 90%, and it takes a while for staff to start to get used to there's their education. Typically, their videos explaining what it is, and then do a simulation. Within 6 months to a year, we start to get organization up to about that 80% mark, which is a critical point to start protecting your environment. And I think that's what I have to talk to, and I'm hoping that there's some questions out there that I would be happy to answer. Any challenges that you're facing, any questions, any things you may see in the news, anything that sort of pops up, I'm happy to answer questions. I didn't want to make this a very complicated presentation at all, because cybersecurity in itself can be complicated. Just wanted to distill just the relevant information, what to protect yourself against, how you can do it, certainly without breaking the bank. So I'll pause there and see if we have any questions. Are we seeing any questions on the chat? You're mute.
Give me just a moment. I'll get the discussion started, Ian, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So here's a question. So worst case scenario happens. Okay, you've had a data breach, or you all of a sudden you're locked out of your system because of ransomware. What should be your first step? Who should be the first person that you as a business person turns to? What's that first call you make when you pick up the phone?
Two things. You certainly call your IT company to understand the next steps. Time is critical at that point too as well. And then you start to go into if there is a business continuity plan. That's something I didn't talk through, but certainly you can have small scale business continuity plan that will talk about exactly that. Who do you call? What's the phone number? Who gets involved? So on and so forth. So I think it's important that you sit down and you sort of write these things down, and we do it for clients all the time. We write these things down. If this happens and you have a breach, here's who you call. So you call the IT organization. That typically in today's day, where it's everything is online, everything is in your computer. That's one document we say you print off and you put it aside, because when that happens, you take it off the shelf and you flip through it and say, who do I call? And it varies for your organization. You call, if you have an IT department, if you have an IT internal person, you call the external IT support. There are organizations out there that are breach consultants, then they will work with you to get you past that. But it also depends on what you have in place. Again, if we go back to backup, if you have a backup in place and you call your IT department, that department says, yeah, we can restore your backup. Let's clean the computers, wipe them clean, go to backup, restore from backup, away you go. If you don't have that in place and the data is very critical and important that you get it back, then you want to reach out to a breach consultant that can help negotiate on your behalf.
And again, if that is, and you've brought in a breach consultant, what I mean, I know these these are not things that are resolved overnight. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do how with your experience in this, how much, like, what's the going rate now for resolution to ransomware? Like, what's it going to cost a small business? What do they need to be aware that the risk of this could potentially end up costing them in the long run?
Yeah. So there's multiple costs. So there's a cost of downtime for your business. There's a cost of consultants to come in and remedy the situation. There's a ransomware cost too as well. If you get fined by the Privacy Commission because you haven't put things in place that need to be in place, such as the things I just spoke about, there's costs around there too as well from a fine standpoint. So this could cost anywhere from upwards of tens of thousands of dollars. I've been in cases where we're talking millions. It's far better to have these things in place. And I know when we talk about IT, right? IT typically is a cost. And so, we're all trying to reduce our costs, so on and so forth. But it's far better to have these things in place than to be having that conversation in the end, because it can cost a lot of money to be able to remedy it. Again, based on your situation, if the data is important to you, if the data is not important to you, and you have a backup, you can restore from backup and away you go. In some cases, there is cyber insurance in place too as well. And if you have cyber security in place, you want to reach out to your cybersecurity company to start to have the conversation. But be aware that when you sign on for cybersecurity, there are things that you need to have in place. Cybersecurity is been driven, believe it or not, by the insurance industry to have these base minimum in place. If you don't have these base minimum in place, half time you're paying premium for no reason. Because when you do a claim, they're going to say, did you have these things in place? Because it's part of the fine print. And so if the answer is no, then sorry, really, you can't have a claim, make a claim against it. So very important that you understand if you have cyber insurance and what's entailed and your obligation that you need to have in place. So in the event of a breach, you can have a claim.
Okay. Ian, we've got a couple of questions that have actually come in. Sure. First one, can you explain what end top protections are, please?
End top?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you mean end device protection.
We'll ask the submitter to clarify. He says yes.
Yes. So end device protection is we refer in the IT world at end device being your PC, your laptop, a tablet. So end device, what I interact with. And so there's protection on that end device, such as EDR. And that EDR is an endpoint detection and response tool that allows us to understand the behavior that's taking place behind the scenes on that machine. If that machine is executing a file that is malicious, then we get a flag, and then we can respond to that. We can interact with that machine in ways that the cyber criminal don't know or don't have access to interact with that machine. We can shut that machine down. We can isolate that machine from the network and prevent it from spreading across the network from a lateral movement perspective. Hope that's clear.
Thank you. Next question from our audience. Would you be able to provide some suggestions of reputable online training for staff?
The ones that I've seen that are really good are paid services. So we have things like Know Before, things like Bullfish. Bullfish is the one that we offer to our clients. And so the nice thing about that you get a video pushed to you from a training perspective. First of all, let's back up. You then sit down and you say, okay, these are the important things that I want to train my staff on. Whether it's phishing, it is business email compromise, whether it is spear phishing. The list goes on and on and on and on. So you say, this is what I want to train my staff on. Click, 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 click. Then the videos are pushed to your staff, and they get an alert to say, listen, your manager thinks you need to have some training on this. Click on the link. The video pops up, and you walk through it. At the end of it, you get a small little quiz. It's a fun way of educating. You get a small little quiz. That you run that for about a month or two. Then you do a simulation. Simulation would be something like somebody that within your organization thought you did a great job and offer you a coupon or a gift card. Click on this link to get your coupon. You click on that link. It says, can you put in your credentials here, please, to be able to get it further. That's a way that we can understand who have clicked on the link, who hasn't, and then you can have some other conversations around that if people have clicked on that link.
Very good. Next question from the audience. We hear that MFA text code can be intercepted. How does someone intercept an SMS MFA code, and is that still possible?
The answer is yes. It is possible, but it is unlikely. So two ways to answer that. We all have Wi-Fi on our phone, and Wi-Fi, we use Wi-Fi to communicate as much as we can to save our data. And so if you're on an unsecure Wi-Fi and that code is pushed to you, somebody's sitting on that Wi-Fi looking and monitoring it, that can happen. It is far more secure if you use the data from your provider. It is far more secure. Can it be compromised? Everything is possible, but it's far more, much more difficult to do that. Personally, I don't do any of my banking on Wi-Fi. I don't do any of my important information on Wi-Fi. If I'm sitting in Tim Hortons waiting for a meeting or something and I hop on their Wi-Fi, I do not do anything that can compromise me at all. I will hop off and I'll tether to my phone and use that. So that's a best practice that I do, that I think everybody should do. If you don't trust the Wi-Fi, which you shouldn't, because I can sit on a Wi-Fi network and I can have tools on my laptop that can spoof and see a lot of activity that goes on. So so be mindful of that you want to stay away from those Wi-Fi that you don't trust. If you're home and you know that you know no one's on it, but you and your family, yeah, I would go ahead and trust that, but you know, you need to be careful there.
Okay. Next question we have, are hardware security keys a better fit?
It's a matter of preference. I mean, software security keys come a long way, and I certainly trust them. Hardware is dine out. I wouldn't say it's a better fit. It's the hardware of transition into the software now. Software tokens and others. I mean, banks use software tokens. They're very, very reliable. So I wouldn't say it's a more secure way. Soft tokens are certainly as secure, if not more.
Okay. Ian, when you mentioned when we discussed different phishing types that are out there, you mentioned specifically spear phishing. Can you give a little bit of
Yeah,
maybe dive into a little bit the difference
yeah.
between the two?
So phishing is me casting my net, and I send out a bunch of emails and see who bites. Spear phishing is being more specific, more targeted. So I would target Don, knowing that he's with the chamber, knowing that he's got authority, and I would try and compromise your email and send an email from Don within the organization to do X. So it's more of a targeted approach. Social media certainly helps this. I can look at Dan's profile. I know what company he works for. I know his position there, and so therefore I can assume that he's got some responsibilities and others that report to him. So an email coming from him to others within the organization is certainly have more weight. So they go after specifically CEOs, CFOs within the organization that or owners of the organization that had more weight, and so it's just a much more targeted approach.
And that's maybe a good example. Is that the email that, I'm sure we've all seen, right? It comes from our boss or something like that that says, "Hey, can you do me a favor? And I'm in a meeting right now, so don't reply to this message."
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in a meeting
absolutely.
and I need you to go out and buy me some Amazon gift cards.
Right, exactly. And in cases like that, there is two ways, right? So you can mimic the person's email address, right? So I can
Mhm,
say Don spelled D the letter O-N, right? So at first glance, it certainly looks and appear legitimate, right? So that's one way. The second way is that if your email is compromised. So if your credentials are compromised and the email is compromised, as a bad guy, I sit there and I watch and I wait to see what are the transactions, what are the email communication that are going back and forth. I see one that says, "Oh, this person hasn't paid my invoice in X amount of time." Then I act
mhm.
and I send an email out from your account to that organization saying, "You haven't paid this account. Can you pay this account, please? It's urgent. And by the way, I've changed my banking information. Send it here." So those are the two ways of certainly that email that you're talking about.
Mhm. We don't. I think, of some of my older relatives and things like that. And if I was to say to them, make sure your software is updated, they're going to look at me like they don't know what I'm talking about. But it's relatively a simple process. Maybe, just let's not assume that everybody on this call today, knows how to check to make sure that their software is updated. What's the first step that you can do to check?
Well, you can certainly go into about on your machine and get the latest version of the OS that's on your machine, and then Microsoft provides tons of information. Then you can check against that to see. You go to Microsoft.com and check against what the latest is, and so you can compare it to see if it's up to date or not. One of the things that small businesses try to sort of save some costs on the OS that they're buying, so they may buy the home version and they're using that within the business.
Mhm.
Part of best practice is you've got to buy the enterprise edition, the professional edition, because it's much more secure than the home edition. And so again, you want to have those best practice things that you're doing within the organization to even protect you a little further.
Mhm. Early on in the presentation, you mentioned that AI is now playing a part in enhancing some of these phishing attempts, some of these, attempts at breaching security. Um, is there something that we should be watching for? Is there examples of how this is being used, or is this, is this going to be a game changer moving forward?
Yeah, I think AI is a big game changer. Absolutely, absolutely is. Um, Not so much of something you can look for, and unless it's obvious. And the point I was trying to make at the time was that, you know, you get this email that you referred to, Donna, from somebody with authority within the organization to say, can you buy these gift cards? I'm in a meeting, they'll respond, so on. In the past, we were able to sort of this thing because how your boss sort of replied to email, so you have that sort of context. You can look at the grammar. You can understand that this is not business talk, business real, and so you can pick up and this thing between them. Now AI is being used to generate that sort of content, where it's difficult to know who is communicating behind that. Um, One of the important things is where I talked earlier about EDR, endpoint detection and response. It is AI based. Cybersecurity protection, I should say, is going to a form where it is AI based, and the ability to learn within your environment. Let me sort of digress a little bit and talk. When we initially built computers way back when, computers were built on the premise that is trusted. So whatever software that is compatible with my computer, I can run it and I trust that. Well, we know that's not true today, right? So we're going to a zero trust platform environment based on AI, where AI is the app behind that, understanding what should be running, learning your environment, learning the app to use, learning the websites you visit and so on. And it's saying, listen, if this isn't part of my list, nothing runs within my organization, then that's starting to become zero trust. I don't respond to clicking on a link unless I trust you. So that's where it's going. So we're using AI to certainly combat AI within the cyber protection world.
Interesting. We have another question from the group, and this is a very specific one based on their business. Um, Joy points out that as a global app developer, we're currently housed with ThinkOn. Data sovereignty and data protection are essential for us. What is the recommendation for audits? So I guess cybersecurity audits she's referring to, and time frame.
So audit is certainly based on your organization and the data that you're trying to audit against. I've seen anywhere from a quarter to a year, so once a quarter or once a year audit. Now, if you're a software firm that's producing software on an ongoing basis and you want to know that there's no compromise within that software. I mean, I've also seen per release too as well. So you audit per release, or you can go down to as audit once a month. So my experience, no hard short way, but it's certainly based on the organization and what you're trying to protect. How often are you releasing that? And so audit against that.
Okay, I hope that answered that question. There aren't any other questions in the chat. If anybody wants to throw in a question in the next minute or two, otherwise we'll wrap up, I guess, Ian. Unless there's anything else you want to add or build on or expand on. I'll I'll leave it out there. But in the meantime, I do want to thank Ian for joining us this afternoon. Um, like I said, I think there's far more cybersecurity breaches and incidents out there than most of us are aware of. There's, certainly there's the ones that make the news. We're all aware that a number of organizations here in our own community have been targeted, have been the victims of ransomware. We've seen those drag on for months and months, and we've seen the impact that it has on not just the organization, but on the people that they serve and work with, and their customers. And like I said, I think there's some out there that probably never even make the news.
There are plenty. There are plenty out there
Yeah,
that
it's
made the news,
it's
especially when it comes to small businesses
yeah,
too as well, right? And
yeah.
so you don't want to hear about those things that are quietly dealt with, and so
Mhm.
on. And it we don't see a time when cybersecurity incidents are slowing down. We see it certainly getting worse because it is a profitable business, and so the bad actors are at it. Certainly, if you want more information, please reach out. Happy to talk through it. We're seeing more and more incident in Northern Ontario, especially in the Indigenous community. So if there's questions, if there are thoughts, we'll be happy to have the conversation or further conversation, I should say.
Yeah. And as Ian said, this is an issue that you want to be proactive on. Once it's happened, it's too late. But yeah, and since it's impacting small businesses more and more, you don't want to be on the receiving end of the cost of that, and also the long-term costs that come from that as well. Because once you've suffered a breach that has impacted your customers, your clientele, your organization, I mean the damage is more than just the financial part of it. It's a reputational thing as well that is very hard to recover from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you,
So,
everyone. I certainly appreciate the time, and I hope the information was useful.
okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. We hope you found the information useful.
Thanks.